Hello and welcome back to our mini-series, The Forgotten Twin. Through this series, Pop's Team Talk Show is trying to rekindle interest among physicists and also students of physics in Bose's second paper on quantum statistics, which is called Thermal Equilibrium in the Radiation Field in the Presence of Matter. We are urging selected physicists to read this paper again and read between the lines and then share their thoughts. In episode 1, Professor Partho Ghosh, who was a PhD student under Professor N.Bose, shared some very significant insights on this paper. If you haven't watched that episode, please do so. It is there on YouTube in our YouTube channel. Now in this episode, we will be talking to Professor Ananda Dasgupta, who is an associate professor in the School of Physical Sciences at IISER Kolkata, and he will share his thoughts on the second paper.
Today, Bose's legacy lives on in the name boson given to all the particles which share his way of counting states. And this actually means that half the particles in the universe are today named after him. Less well known is Bose's second paper of this series, a paper which was published in the same journal in the very same year. This too was translated to German by Einstein himself, and it was Einstein who forwarded this to the journal. However, unlike the first paper, this one did not meet with Einstein's uniform approval. Indeed, in a footnote added to this, Einstein was quite critical about one part of Bose's conclusions. And it can be speculated that it was because of this particular criticism that the physics community as a whole has not really given due importance to the work which Bose had done in this paper.
So Einstein's comments, as you can see, are about a page long. Here he writes at the end of it, Albert Einstein, as you can see here. And he begins like this: I consider Bose's hypothesis about the probability of elementary radiation processes as not appropriate for the following reasons. For the statistical equilibrium between two states of a Bohr atom, the following relation holds as given by Bose.
Was Einstein really fair when he criticized Bose's work? What exactly was his criticism all about? To understand this, we will have to delve a bit into exactly what Bose did in this paper. Prior to these two papers of Bose, there had been several attempts at deriving the Planck radiation law. All of these had one major shortcoming in Bose's view. They relied on specific details of the way radiation interacts with matter, and as a result they had to rely on classical ideas about this. After all, the quantum mechanical treatment of matter-radiation interaction was still to see the light of the day at that time. Bose attempted to remedy this state of affairs by applying general principles of statistical mechanics, principles which would be completely agnostic about the specific microscopic details involved in these interactions. To this end, the second paper derived a condition that ensures equilibrium between radiation and matter. This condition is a central result of this paper, and using this, Bose could rederive the results obtained earlier by the likes of Einstein himself, Pauli, Ehrenfest, and a few others. This was indeed a very important contribution which deserves to be much better appreciated by the physics community. However, in his attempt to rederive Einstein's derivation of Planck's distribution, Bose deviated from Einstein's ideas very strongly. In his derivation, Einstein had considered three different kinds of interaction between matter and radiation: simulated absorption, spontaneous emission, and stimulated emission. It is the last of these processes which we know today as the S and the E in the full form of the word laser. Bose, on the other hand, saw that in order to derive Planck's radiation law from his general condition, he did not really need to assume the existence of this third process. Spontaneous emission and stimulated absorption would be enough. So Bose went on to say that on the basis of minimal assumptions that needed to be made, he would rather not consider simulated emission at all. This was where Einstein differed strongly. He said, and rather rightly, that simulated emission is a process which is physically very meaningful and which turned out to be an important process in this whole thing. Note that Bose had really sort of gone astray in this because of his attempt to derive his results from as little assumptions as possible. It turns out that in this case, Einstein's criticism was actually quite fair. What was unfair, however, was the physics community's response to this paper. After all, this was just one part of Bose's paper. The central result, the condition that I have alluded to before, was very much correct. Einstein, of course, had nothing to say against that. And as I have said before, it would have turned out to be an important contribution had people paid attention. Maybe it was this negative endorsement by Einstein and the fact that Einstein ignored a third follow-up paper which Bose had sent him, which led ultimately to the fact that Bose's work was not as well known, at least at that time, as it should be, and it has been speculated that perhaps Bose missed out on getting a Nobel Prize basically because of this. Whether that is true or not, we can only speculate about, but we should really emphasize once again that despite the rather justified criticism which Einstein had issued about a part of the paper, the major result of this paper was actually a very important, essential one.
So keep an eye on the YouTube channel of the PopSTEAM Talk Show to catch up with the next episode of The Forgotten Twin. PopSTEAM Talk Show is full of surprises.